Welcome to the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion mini podcast series by Fips Consulting. In this mini podcast series, I speak with international guests who share their experience on supplier diversity and inclusion. Today, I get the honor to speak with Farida Gibbs, founder and CEO of Gibbs Hybrid, a resourcing and consultancy firm delivering talent and project augmentation across the UK, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the US. Farida founded Gibbs, a globally certified minority women-owned business, in 2005. Under her leadership, the organization has grown its Polish division by 600% in 2020-2021 and won a major RPO covering MEA for the world's largest technology firm. Gibbs is an advocate and ambassador for supplier diversity and is an advisor to the business panel at His Majesty's Cabinet Office. She also leads the Supplier Diversity workstream and policy for the government. She has won multiple awards and was named to SEA's Global Power 150 Women in Staffing in 2022 and recently SIA's Top 100 Leaders for Europe. Oh my God, Farida, first of all, congratulations on building such a successful company. We could fill a whole episode talking about your story and how you started Gibbs Hybrid. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me. I feel really honoured. Honestly, there's so many wonderful businesses out there, but I know that we tend to have a little bit of a history that goes back some time ago. So thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for accepting. So today I would really like to talk to you about supplier diversity and inclusion and Gibbs Hybrid as a certified minority women-owned business. So how did you hear about the concept of supplier diversity and inclusion?
Right. It goes back a very long time ago. Gibbs Hybrid has been going for 19 years now. And it was in my third year, I think, that I went to meet with a gentleman that looked after procurement at one very large global pharmaceutical company. And I had a delightful conversation with him. And, you know, we were just chatting about the business and, you know, the offering and what we do. And then he said to me, are you certified? Are you a certified woman-owned business? And I said to him, what do you mean? And he said, do you have a certification? And I said, I don't understand. Sorry, can you explain yourself? So I didn't know anything about, you know, being a certified woman-owned business. So he explained everything to me. He introduced me and told me about We Connect International. He told me about MSD UK. And I was like, really? So there are firms out there that, you know, will help to connect companies, small companies like myself, to corporates. And I thought that was an amazing idea because, honestly, trying to find who the right person is in a large organization, you know, and that poor person getting multiple emails and phone calls every day from vendors, I saw it as a light bulb moment. So he kindly introduced me to Mayank, and at that time Mayank was just in the middle of sort of setting up MSD UK and launching MSD UK, and it's where I met with him in London, and he told me about MSD UK. And I was really fascinated because at the time he only had, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 corporates that were working with him. And so I said, great. So I said, what do I need to do? And he went through the process, and I thought, okay, it was an absolute interrogation of the business, but quite rightly so. They had to validate, you know, my credentials, that I had the control, you know, 51%, et cetera. So we did that. I got this. I was so excited. I got the certification, and then I was invited. And then I did the same process with We Connect, and then I started to get invitations to meet with corporates. And it was actually, I think it was, JP Morgan was the first corporate that I met with, and I was fascinated that I was meeting these buyers, and that's how I started. That's how it all started for me, and I haven't looked back, to be honest.
Wow. That's great. So just for the audience, MSD UK is the Minority Supplier Development organization in the UK who certifies ethnic minority-owned businesses in the UK. And we already heard from WeConnect International's Michael Tobolsky. So if you want to know more about WeConnect International, listen into that episode. So it's clear that with the certification, you got access to all these corporates. What was the impact? Did you feel it really had a big impact on your business, having such a certification, creating that visibility?
Not immediately, no. It was, from my perspective, it was amazing in terms of networking. And for me, where I really saw the value was networking with more of my peers or other women-owned businesses or other ethnic minority-owned businesses. So I started to build relationships with those firms to sort of, collaborate. And if anything, we've started to do business with each other before the corporates. But I didn't see an immediate impact. But I really saw it as an opportunity to, use it as a networking tool and also getting the brand and the name and what we were offering out to these corporates, because clearly they didn't know who we were. So I used the opportunity more as a marketing platform to really start pushing out the message of who is Gibbs Hybrid, what do we do, what services do we offer, in the hope that over time, the brand name would be out there and people would know where to come when they did genuinely want an RFP. But not back then. But if you were to ask me that question, when has it made an impact? I would tell you that the biggest impact for us was post the unfortunate scenario with George Floyd. And that's where we really did start to see a tremendous turnaround of interest from global firms wanting to do more in their supply chain diversity.
Wow. Okay. So, but did you also experience any negative impact of being a diverse-owned or minority women-owned business before you had the certification? Like, did you have any clients that weren't reacting so positively on that?
I don't think it was any corporates that were reacting, sort of not positively. I think it was more that, there's always a challenge when you are a startup and, they instantly, look at, your ability to scale. There's things like, the contracts and all the bits with the contracts associated with risk. Right. So when you're very small and you're a startup, you could, I was seen as a risk. So it was more of that than anything else. But, I think, when I was certified with the women-owned, with the WeConnect and the MSD UK certification, I was so excited and I would go to every single meeting and say, hi, I'm so excited. I'm a certified woman-owned business. And some corporates would be like, that's great. And then there'll be some corporates that would say to me, so what? And those ones really threw me. And I realised, like, okay, so not everybody is an advocate for sort of diversity in the supply chain. For some, when I was meeting more with the business or the stakeholders, the attitude was more sort of, so what? When I was, meeting with, obviously the supplier diversity managers that were championing diversity, they had their arms wide open and welcomed me to the firm. When I met with procurement, they were just about on a learning curve about what is diversity in the supply chain. So, going back then, I had the positive, I had the rough with the smooth. But I never saw it as a negative. I just saw it as it was more of an educational piece, something that was going to actually take the market by storm in the years to come, because it was such a huge, the US market, it was so well ingrained in the US market. And that's where I started to learn more about it myself and educate myself more about it. And it was understanding how the US, really took the whole diversity seriously.
Yeah. So you actually started 13 years ago, and now you have like offices all across the world in Europe, Middle East and Africa and in the US. So how did you grow like that? What was a success story, or what has brought you to this growth?
So, okay. So I always I'm a huge, am I allowed to mention corporate names on this podcast? Or am I not allowed?
You are. I mean, the success story that was with IBM was
Yes.
comms approved, so that was published everywhere. It was even on WeConnect International's webpage. So
that was my biggest success story, and that is really sort of where it really opened up the doors for us. And we were identified as a potential tier 2 supplier because we were doing incredibly well in the financial services sector, and it was one of our banking clients where IBM had heard and learnt about us. So we were invited to tender for tier 2. We absolutely, relished the opportunity. We bid, we won, we earned our plus seat at the table. And then it was then through performing really well, that procurement at IBM invited us to tender for a spot as a tier 1 supplier to them. And I thought, but we're so small, but let's do this, let's go for it. And that's where we started to learn a lot about, the expectations of very large corporate firms, looking at our sort of the warranties, the liability expectations, looking at, what insurances that we had to have in place, the governance, the IT, the security. And I was just so overwhelmed, and I just thought, oh my God, is this what we need to do to do business with these big firms? But if my philosophy was, if you can't do that, then don't go to the big firms, stay in more the small to medium sized enterprises. But we wanted to compete, and we wanted to put ourselves out there. So we bid and we won a tier 1, and then very quickly and very rapidly, our name and brand and reputation sort of spread very quickly throughout all of the procurement in IBM. And then we were invited to tender for opportunities outside of the UK. And so for me, the strategy was really centered around, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to, sort of tender for and become a preferred tier 1 vendor to like 200 companies, but maybe the best strategy for growth for us is to grow with our customers and be more client led. And that is the strategy that we set ourselves. So, we don't have hundreds of clients and customers, but what we do is we work, we're very committed to our customers, and then we seek out to where else do you need us? So we expanded out, with IBM into Poland, and that's where that sort of that growth momentum was. And so where our entities are and where we're able to service, that's what we do. So all of our customers now, we not only operate in one market for them, we seek to operate in all the markets where we have entities, and that's the sort of the growth. But that was the success story for us.
Wow, that's very amazing. Being a tier 2 is totally great, either to start growing or to just take advantage of all these corporates who have tier 2 programs, who look for the diverse spend of their tier 1 suppliers. So that's a very cool story. Thank you so much, Farida, for sharing that. So do you also, I know that you are the first, or Gibbs Hybrid is the first women-owned business certified with WeConnect International as a women-owned business, but also the first corporate member of WeConnect International. So I assume that you also live supplier diversity and inclusion within your business. Do you have any process, KPIs in place that you make sure that you also engage with diverse-owned businesses in your supply chain?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, and I think I alluded earlier to, the fact that when I started the journey, I was actually doing more business with those diverse businesses rather than with the corporates. And that's where, we started to really think, well, here's an opportunity to, okay, yes, we need stationery, we need this, we need that. Who can we find in the network? Yes, we need, support with travel. Who can we find in the network? We need an upgrade to our website. Who can we find in the network? So that's how sort of we but it wasn't we didn't create a policy. I just felt that it was the right thing to do. And then that policy side, do you have a supply chain diversity policy? Came from an RFP. So I thought, well, we're doing it. So let's go and put a policy in place. So yes, I absolutely do it. But the greatest thing though, Andrea, is that being a diverse business and being a woman-owned business, we naturally seem to attract, very diverse people that want to come and work for us as well.
Right.
And I think when you lead, with integrity and great passion about, who you are, where you come from, perhaps you're a little bit different to traditional CEOs. I'm known as the chief emotional officer because I wear my heart on my sleeve. And, and then people say, I'm really authentic, but I'm just who I am who I am. And, I'm incredibly, passionate about diversity, and I'm very passionate about helping people from challenged backgrounds. And I think when over the sort of the 20 years course of the business sort of doing that, you do naturally attract people that want to come and work for a firm that has this diverse culture. And, culture has never been a topic for my business, right?
Yeah.
It's always been more about the values that I live by, and that binds us towards the same goal. So we talk about more about the values. So it's all sort of interesting, and and I love it. I love it, and I get a great sense of satisfaction when we are able to support a small diverse business that's looking for a break, and they can't quite get there with the corporates, but it goes back to that, and you don't have to do business with big enterprise corporates all the time.
Right.
There is other firms out there that you can work with. So the networking with We Connect and the networking with MSD UK and others really does allow us to all sort of contribute and support each other more than anything.
Right. So I think that's very impressive, what you just mentioned about the natural diversity in your workforce, which, there are tons of studies about that, right? Supplier diversity and inclusion efforts in your supply chain, you attract a more diverse workforce. And I think right now there's a huge challenge on finding people from underrepresented groups into the supply chain, to work in the supply chain. And also, what you were saying about sustainability or making sure that you have a naturally diverse supplier base is also something that you probably didn't think about, or what you were saying, you don't have the policies, it's just naturally happening, and that's just amazing. That's really great. Thank you so much. And that's why I think it's also important what you said about supporting each other. So that's also something that is proven, that diverse-owned businesses naturally work with other diverse-owned businesses and naturally have the more diverse workforce than non-diverse-owned businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I couldn't agree more.
So we're almost at the end of this podcast, but I would love to ask you, you started your business 13 years ago. Is there any key advice that you would like to share with somebody who is just starting off as an entrepreneur?
When I sort of, when I look back of sort of how I started and what I did, and, I took a leap of faith in knowing that, if I didn't succeed, then it wouldn't, at least I tried. And that's, and I think there's a lot of people out there that desperately want to sort of run their own business, set up their own business, but they struggle because it's that, am I going to be able to make it? Can I, am I going to make money? I always say to people, just do it, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? And I always say to myself, when I set up, Gibbs Hybrid, I said the worst is okay. If I didn't make it, then I would just simply go and get another job. You have to have self-belief. You have to know your worth. You have to be able to know, what your skills are, what you can and cannot do. And if for whatever reason the business that you tried, it didn't, or it wasn't for you, because some people have tried to set up their businesses and said, you know what, I just want to take a paycheck, go home and have a peaceful life and not get too heavy with, payroll and employees and all the things that come with setting up a company. But for me, if I look back, the only piece of advice I think that I would give is, my mantra, and I always say it all the time, I say to people, if you want to succeed in business, you must put your customers at the heart of everything you do. And you have to continually innovate. You have to execute really well. You must build diverse teams around you to support you. And then above all else, you must lead your business with integrity. And when you do those things, I think you start to see sort of the rewards come your way, because you're leading a business with authenticity and people by people at the end of the day. And that's, and we're a people-based business, and I think that's the most important thing. We all have the same access to technology. We have, we can all set up the same processes, but the differentiator is always the people that lead those organisations and the people in the organisations, and that's what you're buying. You're buying that trust and commitment and integrity from that business, and that's essentially all I would say to anyone starting up a business is just start off by really putting the customers at the heart of everything you do, and execute really well, build really great diverse teams, and just again lead with integrity. That's the best advice that I can give.
Wow, inspiring. Thank you so much, Farida. That's very, very great advices, and I love what you were saying. I mean, you will always regret the things that you were not doing when you're old, and I think that's a great advice. So thank you so much for taking the time to share all your meaningful insights and very useful tips, not just for entrepreneurs, but also for corporates, and I think everyone out there. So if you want to make your supply chain more inclusive, reach out to fipsconsulting.com or Fips Consulting on LinkedIn. Listen to my next episodes where I talk to more experts about supplier diversity and inclusion and the impact it has on their business. Reach out if you have any inputs or topics around supplier diversity and inclusion you want me to talk about. Thanks much for listening, and bye, Diverse Owned.